Welcome to Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey, where we explore the journey of becoming the best version of ourselves. Join me, Christy, and my partner Sharon, a licensed professional counselor for over 20 years, as we dive into conversations with inspiring individuals who've overcome obstacles and achieved their goals. We'll discuss the power of self-awareness, compassion, and collaboration, and how embracing our authentic selves can create a ripple effect of positive change. Let's embark on this path of growth, empowerment, and connection together. I want to remind you to follow us on social media. If you love this podcast, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. If you'd like to find out more about what goes on behind the scenes, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Adventures of Two Girls in a Pod, where we highlight some of our travels near and far. Or watch Sharon mix up a batch of drinkable delights on Sip and Savor. Also, if you love this podcast, leave us a review on Spotify. This helps us get discovered by even more amazing listeners like yourself. Share with your friends and family, and make sure to subscribe to our website at twogirlsinapod.com so that you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome.
It's Two Girls in a Pod again. Happy New Year to everybody. We're really excited because we have a guest on with us today. She is the author of I Buried Her in a French Press, and also fellow podcaster of Let's Talk Supply Chain and Blended Podcast. Her name is Sara Barnes Humprhey, and we are so grateful to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's talk supply chain.
Thanks. There's a whole story behind it. It was originally called Two Ways Talk Supply Chain.
It's so interesting because, we often talk about that. And, when you're doing things like this, you modify and change as you go along until you find that thing that just kind of, because we were two girls in a pod life's journey, everything in between. Then we're now down to just two girls in a pod life's journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the evolution. Kind of like, life and journey and not getting caught up in that destination and what it's supposed to look like.
Exactly. So you've done a lot of things.
Yeah. What takes priority right now?
Well, Let's Talk Supply Chain is a big priority for us. I've got a team of almost 18 people. And so creating, you know as well as I do, right? How much goes into creating digital content, whether that's a podcast, a live event, membership, sort of community stuff. And so we've got a team of almost 18 people. And so that's definitely a priority because we've got a responsibility not only to our audience, but also to our clients and then to our team and all of that kind of stuff. But then we've got a really active volunteer community as well that's part of Blended. And we're very focused on growth for this year as a nonprofit. We need to sort of take it to the next level. We're no longer a startup nonprofit. And so I think in their own rights and depending on what day and what time, I got different priorities on different days.
So when you talk about how you came about with this idea, where did this idea come from for both the Let's Talk Supply Chain and also your community one?
I've been in logistics and supply chain for 25 years. My dad owned a logistics company. So for people who don't really know what supply chain is, it's totally fine. But let's take your phone, for example. You've got many different components within your phone that needs to be sourced, bought, put together to a phone, moved to the end destination, put in a warehouse, then you buy it, then it gets delivered to your house. So just so everybody knows, that's what supply chain is. And a logistics company is like a travel agent for cargo, so products moving. And so I worked there for 20 years of my career. I went into the family business right after high school. I didn't go to college or university. I did all of that by correspondence, which is going to date me because that was before online courses. And, I did everything at the company. I worked my way up to director of sales and marketing, and we needed to tell our brand story in a different way. And so I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was particularly listening to Lewis Howes's School of Greatness. And I thought, well, if Lewis Howes can do it, why can't Sara Barnes Humprhey? And so I asked a gentleman, a colleague, to join me as my co-host, and tongue in cheek, we called it Two Babes Talk Supply Chain because I wanted to see how far we could push the industry. And we got 1,000 downloads overnight one night. So as we were on to something, I just didn't know what. And then about a year later, 10 days before my 37th birthday, my dad closed his doors and I was out on my butt with nowhere to go. I had no team. I had no co-host. I had no job. I had never been on an interview before. Probably the worst. Actually, it was the worst day of my life. But I had companies paying to come on the show. And so I had to learn graphic design, social media, website design, you name it. And nobody would ever hire me as a graphic designer because I suck. But I did it anyways. And because I started the Woman in Supply Chain series on the podcast, I think it was January 2018, by April, no women would come on a show called Two Babes Talk Supply Chain. So I literally had to rebrand it. And I chose to rebrand it to Let's Talk Supply Chain. But my advocacy work started with that Woman in Supply Chain series. And it didn't start out to be advocacy work. It was more, I just wanted to learn about their stories, their journeys, what did their career look like? Because I wanted to know what was possible for mine. At that moment, right, I only had the podcast. I couldn't get a job to save my life. I ended up as a part-time receptionist at a tennis club where I was mopping floors. So I went from like a director to mopping floors. Mm-hmm. As I was building that business, I think it was right before the pandemic hit. I knew I wanted to do more in advocacy, and I knew it wasn't just about gender. I have a very blended family, and so I knew I wanted to do more. And so the Blended podcast was born in October 2020, and I bring 5 different people from different walks of life together, talk about inclusion in the workplace. And then a year later, we decided to expand that into a nonprofit called the Blended Pledge, and we wanted to see more inclusive voices on industry stages. And realized that the number one barrier is travel expenses. And so we give away grants to help with that.
Oh, nice. So go a little bit more into your blended. What would people expect with that?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? And I'm a little bit biased because I'm the host, but I feel like magic happens on every single episode. Most of the guests who come together, and we have upwards of 5, have never met each other, and most of them have never met me. But we send the topics ahead of time. So it's not like we're surprising them with like really hard topics and we're going to talk about this for 2 hours and go. They actually choose which topic resonates with them because although experts are welcome, they're not necessarily who we're looking for as far as guests. I guess we want to hear from everybody's perspective on these really hard topics. So we've done privilege, we've done ethical AI. We have over 60 episodes. So there's been a lot of really, really difficult topics. But the magic comes because, like I said, none of them have met each other. Most of them haven't. And most of them haven't met me either. And we just have this very raw, authentic conversation about inclusion in the workplace and what that looks like. Perspective. They start asking questions. They sometimes leave the conversation saying they feel seen and heard that day. And so that's how I know, sort of my work is done. Right?
Yes. Mm. Well, and it sounds like based on what you're saying that all of the stuff that you've done since you got kind of booted out has been very organic in the growth of it because you just didn't know anything. So you kind of had to just learn it on your own.
Yes. Yes. You just reminded me of when I started with LinkedIn Live. I don't know if you remember or if that has been part of your world at all, but LinkedIn Live came out, I think it was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I remember I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to try it. And I get on it and I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. And then I just started calling people out. I was like, oh, hey, thanks for joining. Oh, hey. And then somebody sent me a message. They were like, you need to do a little bit more than just say hi to people. I'm like, okay.
We learn as we go.
And I think that's kind of what is interesting because, you said you started in 2018. We started this in 2021. So I think a lot of people have this idea that when they see these people who have all these, that it happened, this happened overnight, not understanding if you really go look at the backstory, they've been kind of working on this for a hot minute, you know?
I was just talking to somebody else. I think it's not a rules, but somebody says like you have to be in business for 7 to 10 years, I think, before you're that overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. We follow Janice Torres. She just put out a book, Financially Lit, and her podcast is Yo Quiero Dinero, which means I want money. That she talked about that, and she talked about even her. She started with her iPhone in the closet doing a podcast. Once again, not knowing what am I going to do, going from a 6-figure job to I don't have anything. So let's start somewhere, you know? And I think it's a lot of people don't understand a lot of the behind stuff. You talked about having 18 people working for you now, but that's not what this was like.
No, absolutely not. I can go back to, I think I have piles of paper of me writing out scripts.
Because I'm very much a pen and paper person. I'm getting a lot better at that. And I'm using the computer more. But yeah, my scripts were all handwritten, and it was sort of one pebble at a time. Like I just did every single day, I just did something towards it, or I tried something new, or, tried to figure out where I wanted to take this. I mean, when I started, I don't even think supply chain media was even a word. And now it's used all the time.
Mm-hmm. Give a little bit of background prior to starting these companies. You said that so you're from Canada, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you start doing that, but was that your idea when you were growing up? Oh, I'm going to join Dad's company, or was it more?
Yeah, but also mine.
I wanted to take over that company when I was 16 years old. So when I say that the day that the doors were closed, it was the worst day of my life, it was the worst day of my life. Because like everything I thought I knew about me and my life and the trajectory of my life was completely taken away.
So that's a really good point. So when you sat there and, you have to take that moment because there's a little bit of grief and loss over what you perceive and what you've kind of created in your mind to, oh crap, that's not it now. Did you have a process? Did you have people you talked to about that? Or was it just one of those things of, I've got to figure this out?
Yeah, it was really just, I had to figure it out. I mean, the day that it happened, I was sobbing in the boardroom. And I think one of the VPs went around and told everybody I needed therapy. But someone needed to get me a therapist because I was
Crying.
Oh.
which was, just completely asinine. If anybody took 1 second to think about what that looked like, and I'm not just talking about for me. I wasn't just crying for me. I was crying for all of those people that we had that were like family to me for all of those years. And the fact that we weren't able to say that so that everybody else could continue to have a paycheck and a job.
So
Yeah.
did your dad talk to you about this prior to closing? Come to you and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is why. Or
Yes and no. I mean, he had some options. Those options actually didn't turn out, and it was very quick. So it was literally over a weekend. Like nothing fell into place for it to happen, for it to continue and either be taken over or bought or whatever that looks like. It was over a weekend. And so even though I knew a little bit about what was going on, it was very quick for that moment to actually happen. And I think one of the things that really helped me, and I know we talk a lot about purpose. I actually talk about in the book, talk about purpose and how we get sort of like too caught up in what purpose means. And if you don't have a purpose, like, what am I doing with my life? I don't think it was that I necessarily had purpose, but I had reasons to get up and keep moving. And that was the side hustles. So while I was working at the family business, I had always had side hustles. I had always tried different things because even though I knew that I wanted to take over the company, I also wanted to see what else was out there and what else I liked to do. And also, those opportunities gave me an opportunity to learn different things so that I could approach the business differently once I got there. And so while I was working there, like I said, I had these side hustles. Once the doors closed, I had these side hustles that I had to concentrate on. I mean, I had companies paying to come on the show. I had people who were buying makeup because at the time I had a makeup company. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't paying the bills, but it gave me a reason to get up and keep moving
Okay.
because obligation was very important to me.
So, say from the company you worked at for all those years, what was the greatest lesson you learned or you walked away with?
Just one.
There was a lot. I think one of the biggest ones for me was that things aren't as linear as we think they are.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the reasons why I say that is because I was terrified of public speaking. Like terrified. I still am. I get very nervous. I have panic attacks on stage. I knew that at some point I needed to get over it. Right? And so my mom was like, you need to join Toastmasters. And every time I went to pick up the phone, because this was in the era, like maybe around the beginning of the internet, so like, not everybody had websites.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I went to pick up the phone to like book my spot, my hands would get all sweaty and like I just couldn't do it. And so I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And so I got a talent agent and I went on auditions. And I got yelled out of so many audition rooms because, first of all, I can't memorize lines to save my life. And second of all, I am not an actress. I had to pretend to take socks out of a pretend dryer. Like, it was awful. It was so bad. And I would get yelled out of these audition rooms. Not all the time, but it wouldn't be upsetting because like I didn't want to be an actress. I just literally just needed to get out of my own way.
Mm-hmm.
But it led to some really cool opportunities. Like I was on live TV with Denise Richards twice.
Nice.
Because she had a hair care product line. And I have really thick hair, so she loved my hair. I was in a brand power dog food commercial. I'm almost scared of dogs, so I mean that one. When I say that things aren't necessarily linear, what I mean is there's ways of being able to grow while you think outside of the box and you do things that are uncomfortable, but in a way that suits you, not in a way that somebody else wants you to do, you know?
And I think that through that process, it's interesting because it sometimes opens doors to opportunities that you never would have thought of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, who would have thought? I was also on the Walmart shareholders book or something. I don't know. I did a photo shoot with a kid in Walmart. I think it ended up on the shareholders book. I don't know. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing is too, when we're talking about that linear thing, sometimes when we're doing the linear thing, we're trying to control things.
Yes.
So it doesn't have that flow to it. But when you do these things, there's a natural flow that happens that you kind of step back and say, well, I wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it kind of thing. So it opens up a door.
Well, I think it also like tells the universe that you're open to it.
Yes,
For sure.
100%. So I think that when you do that, when did you realize that this was it for you? This thing that you're doing now was kind of your niche and it resonated with you?
When all the other side hustles were hard. And this was the one that was working.
Right.
Okay.
Right? They say you have to, start and stop 9 businesses or something like that for the 10th one. And so I was juggling, I think, 4 businesses at one point. And it was a lot. It was a lot, right? Because you're trying to manage, you're trying to build different businesses. And one day, because I had a technology company, I had Let's Talk Supply Chain, and then I had a couple of other ones that I had dabbled into. And they were actually consumer products. And I realized from all of that, I'm not very good at B2C. I'm better at B2B. So that was a lesson learned. But I had somebody approach me and they were like, the technology company, whatever you're doing there, it's great, but it's draining you. Let's talk supply chain stuff is where you live. Like you thrive. Like this is your thing. Why are you still doing this other thing?
Right.
And I think it was a couple of weeks after he said that. Like I had already been starting to think about it and all that kind of stuff. But then we got an offer for investment for that business. And it wasn't very good. It wasn't a very good offer. It probably wouldn't have set us up for success in the future if I had taken it. And at the same time, my business partner had a heart attack and bypass surgery. And if I had taken the investment, I would have had to do all of the work while he was recovering.
Mhm.
And I was at the point with those businesses where I was like, I have to make a decision because if I take both of these on, I'm not going to be able to do justice to either one of them. And I knew that this one was just working. I didn't know what it looked like, and I didn't know what it was going to look like in the future, and I didn't know how far I could take it. I'll be honest. There was a lot of unknowns with this one. Whereas the technology business, I mean, sure, there's unknowns, but like it's a platform. Like you're building something specific to solve a specific problem. And so I took his advice and I took those other two things as a bit of a sign that maybe that just was not my path.
I think that we get those messages sometimes, and sometimes we're so focused on the end result we think that it should be or whatever, we're not looking at the journey. And sometimes there's so many messages that we miss in that. And that's cool because you got to take that action, and it allowed you to evolve, in an organic way. So I think that that's awesome when you find that kind of thing and you realize, I mean, you maybe didn't have any idea to start with, but you get the conceptualization of it over time through the feedback and everything,
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I still don't know where this thing's going. Doing all sorts of things and trying all sorts of things.
Yeah, we hear you.
Some of them works.
Yeah.
Some of them don't work. I fail publicly pretty quickly. I get back up and try something else.
And I think that's what it is, because I always tell people, I don't ever use the word fail. I said, all we're doing in life is practicing. I said, I practiced at this and it didn't work, so then I get to go practice at something else. But when I use the term I failed, now I think that gets people stuck. And in your case, it was like, oh, that didn't work for me. Let me try this. Do you see what I mean?
Mhm.
So it doesn't deter you in the same way, because it doesn't mess with your ego or your psyche in that way.
Yeah, I think that word it's got a really negative connotation.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I know that we talk about all the time, be careful with the words that you speak out loud, be careful with the words that you tell yourself. And you know what? That's easier said than done, right? We all have our demons. We all have our things that, we obsess about or whatever that looks like. And I think that there's a way to be able to manage through that. But when we use words like fail with one another, right, that have a negative connotation, it really does chip away at like our self-worth,
Absolutely.
right, at our confidence.
Right.
And I think that we need to get better at talking to each other, right, about, taking out some of those negative words. And it's not about calling people out. I don't like that.
No.
But it's about gently reminding them that I don't really like the word failed. Like, try something else. We try a different word,
Mhm.
Yeah. And I found when I explain to people, if I put it in that it's a practice, then they can understand that a little bit better. And so I think too, one of the things you talked about earlier is that when you went into these auditions, you never viewed it as a failure because it was never something you wanted. It wasn't like you had invested all this. But I think sometimes we invest so much. And, like with you in the company, you had invested a lot of time, energy, resources, all of those things. So your investment to that was so much greater than going in and auditioning. So yeah, if they tell you, oh, you suck, they're like, oh, yeah, I knew that before I walked in. That wasn't my point of coming here. Do you see what I mean? So even just changing that mindset, it sounds like what you did. And I'm going to go back also to when you had this conversation and you said that, you were there crying and the vice president comes up and says, and sees that almost as a weakness. But you said, I wasn't crying for just me, but for everybody else. So that's a show of empathy.
Yeah. The book that you mentioned at the beginning of this, I talk about going to see an energy healer. And one of the things, and I actually do some of this stuff all the time. I have a nice little network around me of like intuitive healers and energy healers, and that's kind of my jam. But she said to me that my personal life was meant to be messy. And if you read the book, I mean, you'll totally see what I'm talking about. And that's not even half the stories I could have put in there. Yeah, she said, your personal life is supposed to be messy because that is how you've been sort of given your superpower of empathy. You've been through all these things. Your personal life is messy so that you can now create these safe spaces for conversation and help others to feel seen and heard through conversation, through listening, through asking good questions, through empathizing with them. And I think that when we think about how we show up in life, right, and how we walk through life and whatever that looks like for you and however you want to show up, I think there are some things in our past that we can reflect on, good, bad, ugly, whatever that looks like, but without judgment, to sort of say, what was it about these things that has given me my superpower at being able to lead people, being able to help people, being able to create conversation, whatever that looks like for you. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that too often we don't reflect on that path as much as we should. And I didn't until she said that. And I was like, okay.
Well, and I think so much of the time people, when they're thinking of their past, it will almost take on this negative thing. And I tell people, when we learn to show a little grace for those different versions of who we were, we have the ability to find the messages and the wisdom within those things. But when we're sitting there being critical of 21-year-old me or whatever age that is, we don't hear those messages. We don't have the growth that we should have had due to those circumstances and those experiences that we've encountered throughout our lives. And it sounds like with the energy, that's basically what they're telling you.
Yeah, it was such a great session. And in that moment, I liked the message and I understood the message, but I didn't necessarily in that moment know what it meant for me. I think that was May 2024. And then in September 24, I went to Lewis House, has this conference every year, and it's called Summit of Greatness. I went there and I did this personal brand workshop. And because I was sort of at this crossroads with the business and then my personal brand, who did I want to be? Like, sure, I was the face of Let's Talk Supply Chain, but I didn't build it for me. I built it as a platform so that we could elevate voices within the industry. I was the one that would work for free for the first 3 years. That's what happened. And so I in 2024, I was kind of like, okay, who am I if I'm not the business? Who am I if I'm not the business? What do I want to be in this world? And I was like, I don't really want to be a supply chain expert. And I had been on Bloomberg and BBC talking about supply chain. And everybody thought it was crazy. Right? And I didn't tell too many people. I told a couple of people. And then I went to this personal branding workshop and he goes, your personal brand should be about one word. I was like, one word? How in the world are you supposed to do that? And he gave all these examples. Of course, he's got like Brittany Brown up there, like Lewis House. And I was like, I'm not those people. But I thought about it for a whole week. I thought about it for a whole week because I was away. I was out in LA. And I get on this flight, this red-eye flight home, and I'm sitting in the seat because I've been thinking about that whole week. I was like, what is it that I do? Right? I channeled that energy healer and I was like, my personal link's messy for a reason. What is it that I do? I'm not necessarily just a podcaster. I create conversations. I've always said it. I'm a conversationalist, What's the reaction that I get from the guests for Blended? So I was trying to bring everything together. And I sat in that chair. I went, I've got it. It's self-worth. My personal brand is about self-worth. And I was like, because of this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I get back to my team and I tell them and they go, absolutely not. And I'm like, what? what do you mean? And so I start explaining what I mean by that. I create safe space for conversation. People leave blended. And when we stop the record button, they say, I feel seen and heard. Personalized messy. These are all the things that I was bringing it all together. And they were like, well, okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of this beautiful moment of, I don't have to be in a box again, right? I think outside of the box to make sure that the life that I'm building and the business that I'm building and how I'm building everything aligns with who I want to be and the impact that I want to make in the world.
Exactly. So real quickly about the book, I buried her in a French press. How did we come up with that name?
It's really interesting. So everybody thinks that it's a metaphor. It is not. Took a moment in the book. I buried a part of myself in a French press. No. There's actually a full chapter about the moment that I ended up burying my step-grandmother in a French press in real life.
Oh, okay.
And she was one of my best friends. So the title is an ode to her, but because the book is about my relationship with self-worth based on my life experiences, it also has a connotation of the past selves after learning and all the things that I needed from those bad selves.
Well, I imagine a lot of people sit there and say, I think I'm going to read that book because I got to figure out what this is all about.
Right. Intriguing title.
Funny. After they read it and they get past that chapter, they're like, oh.
Right.
But it's a story about resilience and trusting your gut in a very difficult, emotionally driven moment.
What's interesting? We often talk about trusting our intuition and how a lot of that intuition has been really pushed down, and particularly in women. You'll have it in kids, but a lot in women. And so it's almost like when they have those moments of, I really know I shouldn't be doing this, there's that kind of other voice, very similar to you with that business. I knew I shouldn't be there. And your intuition was telling you. So what do you think prevented you from listening to that intuition and taking longer or trusting in that intuition maybe?
I don't think that it's any one moment. It's actually funny because a lot of people have said to me that I speak things into existence. So I'll say something and all of a sudden these things will start happening. If it's right. If it's not right, it won't.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I didn't really pay attention to it. I didn't really realize what was happening. But it also only happens when it's the right thing that you're doing. So it didn't happen with any of those other businesses. It's happened more with this business. And the fact that I can speak things into existence and they start falling into place. And that that didn't happen until 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There are a lot of times I do not listen to my intuition. And it gets me in trouble every single time. Actually, it's intuition first, husband second. Because my husband's always right about some of the people I surround myself with. And then these to me a big right. And so I ignore my intuition and then I ignore him and then we get big trouble.
But what do you think gets in the way of you? Because you know it. And say you even have the conversation and internally you know what he's saying is correct. What do you think is that driving force that keeps that and not trusting in it?
I just want to get it done.
I don't have a lot of time, right? I have a lot of time finding the right person potentially, which I should.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to get somebody in place to handle this business.
And I do things too quickly.
Okay, so it's...
And then I'm like, it's okay. Everything will be okay. That's what my future self will feel like.
Your future self is saying, listen here. But, it's interesting because when we're talking about manifesting things and we're talking about that, and you talked about an energy healer, we often talk on here about we are energy and the energy that we attract to us and things like that is really important. And when we align with our true energy, then everything kind of starts falling into place. You see this little progressive thing happen. And it sounds like that started to happen more with you when you actually went and started embracing this other piece versus the business.
Yeah. Well, and for a long time, for a majority of my life, I had attracted narcissists.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. For a very long time. Most of my life, I had attracted them. And it is a little bit still to this day, but not as much. So, like, the universe was pretty much hitting me over the head with, like, a soft baseball bat. Like, you need to do something about this. These are not your people. These are not your right people. And I ignored it for a very, very, very long time.
Well, in your defense, narcissists are very good at what they do.
Good, right?
Yeah.
Did I get caught up in all that? There's a couple of stories actually in the book. I don't think I named them outright as narcissists, but I mean, you get the picture. So, like, I attracted that, but it wasn't until I got into my own business and I was very intentional. I got very intentional about the team that I wanted around me. I still make mistakes, don't get me wrong. I have hired the wrong people. Think that okay for a couple of months and then it just hasn't really worked out. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that we're not a fit. It's just not aligned. And
Yeah.
when that's the case. And so I've just built that muscle, I think, over the last couple of years, having my own business. I think also because I've had to.
You learn so much about your resilience through the whole process.
Yeah, learned so much about my resilience, but then also learned more about who I wanted to surround myself with, what I wanted that to look like. Because at the end of the day, again, like, the business isn't about me. It's about the people that are on my team, the people who are in the audience, if our clients, it brings a whole community together.
And there's got to be the right people to be able to do that.
Right.
And I think that oftentimes when we get in our own way, we don't really see those opportunities that present themselves because we, once again, are, when you talked about linear thinking, we get so caught up in that linear way of thinking that we will not see that person who's standing in front of us that is the perfect fit because I have my idea over here. And
Yeah.
how did you learn to get out of your way? Because that's a big thing for a lot of people.
I probably still do.
It's an ever evolving journey. I mean, I talk in the book about progress over perfection, right? Too many times we get focused on the fact that we have to be perfect. We have to have all the confidence every single day and every single moment, But that's just not true for anybody. We still talk about the messiness. I got used to feedback. I got used to being able to talk about feedback without getting defensive. And that took some time.
Oh my goodness.
Took a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
That
Practice.
Yes, for sure.
With people who were willing to practice with me. And there was a lot of making amends, apologizing when I was out of line, apologizing if I made a mistake that affected the whole team. I mean, I just did that, I think it was last year. And through what happened, I realized how much extra work and how much extra pressure I had put on the team because of the decision that I had made.
Mm. Mm.
And so I think getting out of it being all about you
Mm-hmm.
and it being about, like, almost the collective.
Right.
Makes a really big difference.
And I think that's hard for people to go from ego, because that's really what it is when we stop to think about it, because ego allows us a sense of power and control or whatever that is. But to work as a collective, it's so much more fulfilling for not only you, but the thriving of everybody around you. And that's why it's such a valuable thing. But I think it's something that people really struggle with, and particularly in business. Because part of it is you want your business to be a success. You want to meet the needs of everybody. But sometimes meeting the needs of others, we forget about the team.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and I mean, I think this is where balance comes in. Everybody talks about work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's sure you've got to balance work and life, but work is part of your life is part of your work. I get that. But I think we also need to balance self-care and we need to balance constructive criticism and feedback and conversation.
And communication.
Yeah. I think, we talk a lot on here, the importance of communication and taking that time to listen, to truly actively listen to somebody and to understand that we're here to grow individually and as a group. Or we hope that's happening. You know? But listening to criticism is something that is very difficult for people because it really is that place of going into self-worth. Even if I'm saying this statement could have been done this way, the person then goes into this thing of I'm not very good at this negative self-talk instead of just acknowledging, oh yeah, I guess I could have worded that differently. We take a lot of those things very personally, and I think that that is such a detriment to us because it just keeps us stuck in the same spot.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that one day you're going to do it perfectly and the next day you're not.
Or it does mean that, right? And you have to be okay with that. Sometimes you're going to take criticism well, sometimes you're not. I mean, it depends on a whole bunch of different factors on what's happening that day. I think it really just comes down to respect and grace. I think also whoever's giving you that feedback, you gotta sort of, figure out who they are. Are they where you want to be? And are they the ones that are giving you the feedback that you actually want to take in?
Right.
Right? Because if they're not and they've never been there and they've never been down that road, maybe that feedback isn't necessarily right for you, but you can listen, acknowledge, and appreciate them for sharing it with you. Doesn't mean you have to take it with you.
Exactly. And I think that's what it is. I think that when we're going to encounter people all of our lives, and sometimes stuff they say really resonates with us, and sometimes it doesn't. And the one that it doesn't, we don't sit there and negate and we just say, that's not in my wheelhouse or whatever. And you appreciate it. And I think it becomes that thing of being just respectful of people. And I think when you're talking about your podcast where you're bringing people together, that's what you're doing. You're creating the space in which everybody's going to have different ideas, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually, one of the things that I say before we start, I'm like, it's okay to disagree. I don't want all of you sitting here and agreeing with everything that everybody's saying. So it's okay to disagree. But if you're going to disagree, I want you to do it respectfully.
Right.
Yes. I want you to be able to listen to what the other person says. And I want you to be able to respectfully respond rather than, and that also creates the boundary and the expectation of how this conversation is going to go. And I always say to them, I say, listen, this is a 2-hour episode. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to eat food, if this is not resonating with you and you don't want to be here anymore, turn off your camera, leave, put yourself on mute, go gather yourself, take a moment and come back, or don't. It's okay. And so it allows people to have the opportunity to do what they need to do for themselves in a moment without creating anxiety, like anxious moment for somebody if
This isn't going the way that they thought it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I think that we need more examples of that because a lot of times people do not know how to respond in a way that's not attacking or that.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you don't set that up, then people will tend to create the atmosphere that either they want you to ask them to leave instead of just leaving. But when you set up the parameters, it makes it so much easier for people to do it in a comfortable way.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to get to that point as well. Like at first, I wanted 5 people. And if only 2 people showed up, I saw it as a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why aren't these people showing up? And these people were backing out the day before. They were backing out the morning of. Or they weren't messaging me at all and they were just not showing up. And I was like, why is this happening? Right? And then I thought, you know what? These are really tough topics. I'm pretty sure they're getting in their head about whether they're the right person to show up or not. And that's on them, which is fine. But what am I going to do about it so that it doesn't take a hit to me personally? Because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at that point where I was like, okay, whoever is meant to show up will show up that day. If there's only me and one other person, obviously I have to reschedule because I can't just have the conversation between the two of us. But if 2 out of 5 people show up, we're definitely going to do it.
Sweet.
And it turned it around so that I wasn't taking it personally that people weren't showing up. And it made it into something that everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And I think sometimes as humans, we have to learn to surrender to some things and to surrender to those things we do not control and to know that what's going to happen is going to happen and being okay with it and understanding it's neither good nor bad. It just simply is.
Yeah, you keep using this word control. And as I'm going, as we're talking through all of this, I think that through this journey, I've relinquished control over time.
Yes.
I've just had this light bulb moment. Thank you very much, by the way. But this light bulb moment of wait a second, I think some of this journey that I've been on have been about relinquishing control.
Yeah.
And that's where some of this comes from, because we hold so tightly to control and having to control our environment. And I put myself in so many uncomfortable situations
Mm-hmm.
that I can't control, and I just got to go with the flow that I've just gotten,
I guess, used to it, but that's been part of my journey. Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. And oftentimes we don't acknowledge it as control.
Yeah.
You know, we'll say, oh, it's for the betterment of the company. It's for the betterment of my people. It's all this and that. But at the end of the day, it really is that, because kind of like you said, when I'm doing this and only one shows up, well, then that frustration and internalizing it is because if I internalize it, somehow it's a control. I can control people. We can't control anybody. They're going to do what they're going to do.
No, but I can control in that moment, or at least feel okay about the emotions that I'm feeling in that moment.
Yes.
Controlling it like that, right?
Well, the thing is I tell people, when we look at control, it's always been an illusion, because the only thing we control is what I think, what I feel, and how I behave and handle a situation. That's it. Everything external to me, I don't really get to control.
Yeah.
But we all like the illusion. I'll go into that illusion every once in a while.
And sometimes it's really disguised. I know that even through the podcasting and everything, it has been, I didn't realize that it was a control aspect or whatever. If it's a new skill or something that I need to learn, whether it be, regarding the social media aspect or something like that, I have been hard pressed to make myself give that over to somebody else, because I feel like that it's something that I should be doing. So.
Yeah, some of my most listened to episodes have the worst audio.
Oh.
I just want to put that out there because, if I had controlled it and not put it out there because it wasn't perfect,
then it would be a most listened to episode.
That's true.
And I think there is something with people that they like that realness. I think especially in a day of AI and all of this, people are looking for that sense of connectivity on this human,
Genuine
connection that we can get. It just feels more authentic.
Yeah, I say to people all the time,
because they're always like, what's the secret, or what can you tell me? And I'm like, I'm not sure, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But number one, be you, because it's too hard to be anybody else. And 2, be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently show up and people will trust you.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of people, especially when they're wanting to do podcasting and stuff, it's like, oh, well, I did it. And I'll be there like, well, how long? 3 months. And they're like, we have 160 episodes.
Yeah.
It's consistency. And showing up for the audience and stuff because that's their expectation.
That's what people are looking for.
You know, I mean, we want consistent. You want people to consistently show up on when they say they're going to show up. And it's the same thing. We can't demand of others what we're not willing to do. So it's kind of one of those things, but it sounds like for you, this journey has been more so organic in that you're learning as you go and you're learning to kind of laugh at the things that have kind of been maybe a little bit of a mess up.
Maybe after some tears, but yeah.
Then I'm going to laugh about it.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger thing that I heard was understanding it's not linear. If I choose a path, the path is often linear. And we don't understand that sometimes every once in a while, those side paths, we get to see a beauty we never thought we could. And we never would have had we stay in that linear thinking. But we're programmed to be linear,
Yeah.
you know? And
But then if we get too obsessed with that, then when things don't work out, the fall is actually a lot harder.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's why for you very much in your head, I'm going to take over this business. This is what I'm going to do. And that's why when it was like the rug was pulled right out from underneath you and the whole world kind of shifted a minute. And it was like, but you didn't succumb to it. And I think that's the most important thing for our listeners to understand is you found a way.
Well, I had a reason, right? I had a couple of different reasons because I had some side hustles and some obligations. But I think that's where core values come in too, right? Obligation is a big core value for me. And so those people who had paid to come on the show or they paid for makeup or, you know, whatever that looked like, or the team that we had assembled for the technology, that had to keep moving forward. They were going to wait for me to take a minute. If somebody places an order for makeup, I got to send it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the core value of obligation and doing the things that I say that I'm going to do helped me out in that moment to give me the reason to just keep things moving forward every single day. It didn't mean that I ignored the emotions and everything that I was going through and what I need to process. I had a therapist for that. I've had therapists since my early 20s. But it was the beginning of healing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I had to get over all of that within a week.
Mm-hmm.
I continuously worked on different ways of being able to heal. That includes energy healers. It includes therapists. It includes hypnotherapy, right? Trying different things, figuring things out, what I liked, what I didn't like, what resonated with me. I even did generational healing as well. And so there's lots of different things out there that you can do to sort of help you on your healing journey. But it's a journey.
It wasn't going to get over what happened in a week. It's taken me a couple of years.
Well, you know, I always tell people, I love it when they come to my office for the first time and they say, well, how long is this going to take? I said, well, I don't know. How long have you been having the symptoms and this? I don't know, since I was 15 and I'm 30 now. Okay, well, I get a little bit more than 6 weeks. I said, we have to put it in context. And I do a talk on Saturdays and Sundays, and this one was saying, you know, she lost 100 pounds, and somebody asked her, well, how long did that take you? And she said 5 years. They go, well, why so long?
Right.
And she goes, I was so upset because I didn't have a response. I said, tell him it took you longer to put it on. And she goes, that's my go-to from now on. I said, because we're in a society where we want everything really, really quick. And not understanding, even with that, there's sustainability when we do it in a way that it becomes our pattern of our lifestyle. You talked about obligation as we're getting ready to finish. Part of what that sounded like is early on you learned a great worth ethic.
Mm-hmm. I did. I mean, I had two entrepreneurial parents.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so I think when we have that worth ethic, obligation goes with worth ethic. You don't have one without the other. You know, and it sounds like because you had the gift of learning that worth ethic, that is also something that has really helped you sustain and succeed.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
You know, not that we'd ever want to admit it. No.
You're right. I have always had a very strong work ethic.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, kudos to you, because guess what? It's paying off for you.
Yeah.
And you get to create this space that really resonates with you, and not only about your continued growth and self-worth, but you're providing a space for other people to have that growth in their own self-worth. And we need more of it. We need more people really promoting that and working to be the best version of who they can be.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, you guys are doing the work too, and I just want to acknowledge and appreciate you for
that and for creating your space for these types of conversations, because I think it's
really needed as well, and I really appreciate you for having me on the show.
We've enjoyed it, and hopefully people will get some more people to tune in. And
So where's the best place for people to find you?
so Instagram at Sara Barnes Humprhey, LinkedIn at Sara Barnes-Humphrey. The book is I Buried Her in a French Press on Amazon.
It's the only thing, I promise you, if you put that in the search bar, nothing else will come up.
we know because Christy was doing that.
Yeah.
And then SaraBarnesHumphrey.com or blendedpledge.org as well if you want to go and check out the podcast and the nonprofit.
Perfect. Okay, we'll be including those in the description.
Yeah. So hopefully this resonates with people, and hopefully when people listen to it, it inspires them to work on their self-worth, but also to create a space where that can happen for them as well, because I think that's just as important.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And to our listeners, we are always so immensely grateful for you, and we thank you always. And we'll be back.